Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody had a great Labor Day weekend. And today I'm going to be continuing on with our compliance subject here, segment. And the one thing I hope everybody's kind of going away with, and I hope every week you go away with something new that you hadn't thought about or that I'm reminding you of. But keep in mind, this is your business. And what I'm seeing lately is a lot of odd things, I'll put it that way, that are popping up with our agents and some off-the-wall type of things. And I'll be explaining here in just a moment. But please keep in mind, this is your business. And your clients are your lifeline when it comes to earning income with this business. So you need to be on the lookout and just not walk around being paranoid. I don't want you to do that because your personality is part of who you are and your makeup and the success of your business. But you have to be careful. You have to be smart. And so I hope, through the theme of what I'm doing here on Wednesday mornings, I hope you can walk away with one or two items and just say, oh, that's, I need to put that into my business practice, or I need to be aware of this so that when I'm in a transaction, I can kind of look out for this. So anyway, that's the point, that's the purpose. And if you have any questions on a subject, whether it's how do I handle this situation, and you're just looking, even though you might have a good idea, but you want to brainstorm, or you want to knock something over with, or talk something over with your broker, feel free to reach out to your broker. Your broker is a great source of information for you. I know them all personally, and I know they all are there for you. They all want your calls to come in so they can help steer you clear of any potential problems that you may not be thinking about. And it's not so much, well, the brokers know a lot, but beyond that, sometimes having not having an emotional attachment to a situation will add to the clarity in terms of the thinking and the strategy process. So again, feel free to reach out to your brokers. That would be Jeff Green in Northern California, Omar Hellman in the LA Orange County area, Mary Jane Morris in the Temecula Marietta area, and of course myself here in San Diego. So please feel free to reach out anytime. Today I'm going to talk about first prelim, and I'm going to be going through a number of topics here. The preliminary title report. When you get that in on a transaction, you need to look at that. And if you have any questions about what it says, get a hold of your title rep. That's what they get paid for. The key to a title rep, to a preliminary title report, that is to check for easements. You want to make sure that you are well aware, as well as your buyer is well aware, of the easements that may be coming through the subject property. An example of that might be if you're in a subdivision and there could be underground easements for power lines, for cable TV lines. You just never know exactly what's underground and what type of easements you're facing with. So if you're selling a home with a big lot and your buyer's telling you, hey, as soon as I close escrow, I'm putting in a pool back here, you want to make sure they can do that. And if they can't, you want to make sure they're well aware before they close escrow. So get the escrow officer to order that prelim. You order the prelim right away so you can get it. When you get it, review it. If you have any questions on your review, call the title rep. Have them go over it with you, either in person or on the phone, and let them tell you exactly what issues are attached to that property, what underground easements there might be, and how that might limit the use of the yard. So again, please keep that in mind. Preliminary title reports, review with your title rep, and check for primarily easements, but there may be other attachments to it as well. Another example of that might be an IRS lien. If the seller has an IRS lien, that would be attached to the property and would reflect on a title report. So again, make sure you're well aware of everything that affects that property. Escrow commission demand is vitally important for the file review approval in in your transaction. So the brokers cannot approve your file without that commission demand from escrow being uploaded. Second part of this is make sure your broker signs it. So when you receive that from the escrow company, the escrow demand from the escrow company, upload it into DocuSign, send it to your broker so they can review it and sign off on it. Once it's signed off by the broker, upload it into the into SkySlope, into your transaction file, so that it can be approved there as well. The brokers have been instructed not to approve any file without the escrow demand. So please do that up front. Escrow will cut it right away for you and get it in and get it uploaded. If it changes because of a buyer credit or a seller's credit, then redo it immediately and make sure you notify everybody concerned that this is a new demand based on a credit being given to the buyer or seller. So again, please keep that in mind. Notice to perform. You want to stay on top of your client, whether you're on the buyer side or on the seller side. You want to make sure the other side is performing to the best of their ability. And so as you're coming up on whether it's inspection release, contingency releases, or whether it's on loan approvals or appraisal approvals, you need to make sure you stay on top of that. So as you're coming up on the deadline dates for the inspection reports, for example, you want to make sure you're well aware that the inspection has been taken care of, whether it's a home inspection or any other inspection that the buyer may want to select and go with. There are a number of different inspections out there, so you want to stay on top of that. The other thing you too want to stay on top of is the loan approval. From the beginning, just get the dialogue going with if you're on the selling side, with the buyer side, that number one, that the buyer has all their paperwork into the lender and is processing smoothly. You're going to know relatively quickly when that appraisal is going to be handled, and so you need to be on top of that. And really, I do recommend that you meet the appraiser at the property so you can go through and show the comps you have backing up your list price. So again, that helps. I think appraisers overall like that. They don't like you doing their job, but if you just approach it from the point of view, hey, listen, this is where we priced it, this is where what we negotiated with the buyer in terms of the purchase price, and here are the backups I used. Always put it back off on yourself. This is the comps I used to justify, and that's why we listed it where we listed it. So again, that helps the appraiser. And be real careful with your approach with appraisals so that they don't take it personally that you're trying to do their job. You're just trying to help them and try to make that point come across. I've said this last week, document your files. So, again, I don't want you walking around being paranoid, but kind of be aware of, different signs you might see from the other side. For example, if you're on the listing side and you have a buyer that comes in with their agent and they make an offer and you're negotiating back and forth and they're asking you questions. For example, and this is more in a recent situation I had pop up, can you split this property? I don't care if you know the answer or not. I don't care if the answer is yes, no, whatever the answer is, you as a listing agent should not be telling and interpreting what the local ordinance is for a property. So if a buyer comes in and says, well, I love this property and I want to split it so I can build 2 houses and sell one and keep the other, just say that's a great idea. That's really thinking. But you'll need to go down to the city and really check this out, because I'm not sure this lot is splittable with the local ordinance. Even if you know they can't do it, even if you know they can do it, you just do not want to give that answer. Because the problem is, if you misinterpreted what you're saying from the real fact, that puts you on the line. That puts you out there so they could come back on you and say, hey, listen, Tom told me I could do this. Tom told me that I could split this lot. Sometimes you say, no, I don't think you can, and they'll still come back on you and say, well, I'm sure Tom told me that this lot was splittable or this is doable. So really what you want to do is, again, protect your client, protect yourself, and let them know that, hey, listen, I don't know the answer to that. It's a great question. I think it's a great idea, but you will need to go down to the city and make your own determination as to whether or not you can do it. Do not, as a listing agent, go down and do that work for them. Again, you're running the risk of a misinterpretation on your part or a misinterpretation on what you communicate to the buyer, who is not your client. So again, push the client, push the buyer's agent down there, push the buyer down there, but you as the listing agent and the seller should not ever do these. That's what the inspections are for. It's for the buyer to inspect and to bring up any information that might be pertinent to them in the purchase of this property. So again, I advise you, do not do that work. Just say it's a great idea, but you need to go do your own inspection. I don't know the answer as to whether or not you can split the property or any other type of whether they want to build another structure, anything of that line. You just send them down to the city, let them do their own inspection, let them do their own interpretation, and move forward. Second step to that is, if you get asked, for example, what happens, can I split this lot? You send them down, you say, gosh, that's it's a great idea. I don't know the answer to that. You'll need to go to the city and ask them. Follow it up to the buyer's agent with an email. Hey, great talking to you today. Great question, about splitting the lot, whether you can or not. But please, as I stated, I don't know the answer to that. You need to go down to the city. Again, it's just a necessary step, and it's taking care of your business. It's protecting your seller, it's protecting you, and you're not being obnoxious by coming across of that nature. You're just saying, hey, matter of fact, great talking to you today, great communicating with you today. It was a great question you asked. I'm sorry I didn't know the answer to that, but you can go down to the city and get that answer. Again, that's just a step to protect you. So if they do come back, and trust me, from time to time they will come back and say, well, Tom told me I could do this. No, I didn't. If you check my email dated so-and-so, you will find out that, we did discuss it. I'm not denying that. But this is what I told you, and I referred you down to the city, and here's my email backing up that conversation. So again, it's just documentation is backing up what you're talking about. And it's just, I know it seems like detail work, but it's something that's really, in today's world, particularly here in California, is very vitally necessary. And again, I'm just, you just want to be a full service agent to your clients, in this case the seller, to make sure that they are being taken care of, and that after the fact, the buyer can't come back on you for misrepresentation. So again, you just want to be careful with that. If you have any questions on any of this too, please reach out to me after the class, and I'll be back at my desk a little bit later this afternoon. I'll be happy to respond. Terms. Whenever you have a listing, and the listing obviously is between the brokerage and the seller, and you establish the price, you establish the details of the listing as discussed and agreed upon between you and the seller. If there's going to be a change in that, for example, if the price is going to change, then you need to update your file. So if you agree to a sale price with the seller, for example, of $500,000, and then you change the price, it doesn't matter if you go up or down, but you change the price, and you put that change into the MLS, you need to make sure you are covering yourself. And again, what I'm talking about is a modification of terms. You need to be able to have whatever the change in price is placed into writing and signed off by the seller as well as you, the listing agent. So be vitally careful with that. As you all have, not all, but as some of you may have experienced, we have a transaction reminder program out there, and it's to help both you, the agent, as well as us, the brokerage, in terms of keeping our files and our transactions up to date and with the needed documentation. The problem you might have if you go ahead and do a price change without doing a modification of terms, if the price change is lower and the seller said, I never agreed to that, you have no backup as an agent. The only thing you have as a backup is the original listing agreement, and that would show the higher price. So you have to be, again, very protective of your business and make sure that you are doing what's necessary to protect not only you, but your seller as well. But in the example I just gave, you need to make sure you're covered with that. So do a modification of terms. If you're in contract, if you have an RPA signed and you have a buyer and there's going to be a change in the terms of the RPA, then you do need to do an amendment. So to make sure that the buyer as well as the seller agree that you're changing very important terms of their original agreement in the RPA are being changed, whether it's a price change, whether it's a close of escrow date, whatever the situation might lend itself to. Do an amendment if you're on an RPA so that both buyer and seller can agree to it, and then it becomes a part of the file. If it's only a listing, you do a modification of terms. So between us, the brokerage, and your seller, we're changing the price, we're changing whatever the terms, specialties are regarding that particular listing that is being covered, and you're protecting yourself. So just in review, as far as the preliminary title report, I want to, again, read it, go through it. If you have any questions about it, or if you haven't done it and you want to know how to do it, get a hold of your title rep. That's what they get paid to do. So get with that title rep, whether it's over the phone or in person, and go through a title report so that you know how to advise your client. Again, if they want to put a pool in that backyard and there's a cable TV easement, underground easement there, they're not going to be able to put in a pool. So, make sure they're aware of that so you don't have an issue later and you don't have the buyer coming back on you. Even though they may have signed off on the preliminary title report, they're still going to come back and say, well, I relied on my agent. So, again, protect yourself. The commission demand from escrow, again, brokers cannot approve your file until that is submitted and uploaded, signed by the broker into the file, the SkySlope file. So make sure that's completed so your broker, when the file is complete, can approve the file. Notice to perform, we talked about that. Again, keep an eye on your inspection dates. Keep an eye on when these inspections need to be done so that you can get the contingency release, which solidifies the deal, whether you're on the buyer side or the seller side. Document your files. I'm going to end with this. I said it last week. I said it again this week. I'm going to say it again. Document your files. Communicate with emails. Develop the skill of emailing without being confrontational. Just say, hey, listen, great talking to you today. I just want to reiterate what we discussed. In the case of the easements or splitting the lot, I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry, but your client and you can go down to the city and they can give you firsthand, up-to-date information on whether this lot is splittable or not. Again, you don't want to say, even if you know the answer, you don't want to say it because you don't want to, your interpretation could be wrong. And you just, again, you don't want to be, they may take what you are saying wrong. And so you don't want to be the one that's relaying that information. Let the city do it. If they're going to have a complaint after they close, let them go at the city, not you. So documentation, documentation, documentation. Upload all your emails to your seller, to the buyer's agent, to the buyer if you did email them, and make sure everything is up to date in your transaction file in SkySlope so that your broker can approve the file. That concludes today. I hope you all had, like I said, a great Labor Day weekend. Football is on TV now, so life is good once again. And we look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great day.